Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This webinar is hosted by OverDrive, which is the leading digital distributor of ebooks, audiobooks, magazines, and video to both public and school libraries throughout the world. We deliver these through our apps Libby, Sora, and Canopy. And today we'll be focused on school libraries and how digital reading can be a great tool. And we'll specifically be focused on magazines as a format to incorporate into the classroom and some unique benefits of this often overlooked format. I'd like to welcome and introduce my colleagues who will be leading today's webinar. First, I'll introduce Laura Figurski, who is an account manager at OverDrive, working with international schools in South America, Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. She has degrees in history, international studies, German studies, and a master's in instructional design and technology. Prior to coming to OverDrive, Laura taught ESL for more than 8 years in international schools and online all over the world. And she's also taught in the US in K-12 schools. The next presenter will be Zoe Orcutt, who is a digital content librarian working with international schools on OverDrive's International Collection Development Team. She has a degree in English and a master's in Library and Information Sciences. Before coming to OverDrive, she was an academic librarian working with colleges and universities, and currently she works with school libraries and consortiums in Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. So thank you both so much. I will go ahead and hand it over to Laura to kick us off.
Thank you so much, Molly. Yep. Okay. So we'll be covering four main areas today. Obviously, we're going to talk about magazines in general and the benefits. And then we're going to talk a little bit about why digital magazines are kind of a lot different than the physical magazines. And then I will hand it over to my colleague Zoe, who will talk a little bit more about using the magazines in the classroom and for leisure readings, and then a little bit about how we do it in Sora. So what are the benefits of magazines? So magazines can be used in the classroom to help students develop literacy skills and improve in performance. This could be anywhere from informal reading to background knowledge to developing reading habits. Next slide. So one of the appeals in general is we all know one of the biggest struggles is getting children to read. So magazines allow us to go ahead and create high interest in areas for those unmotivated readers. It gives a full spectrum of primary, secondary reading ranges and interest levels. So it allows books to be supplemented by these magazines, and allow children to find different things that interest them both in their leisure time and in the classroom. So obviously magazines are a great way, as I mentioned, because you have bite-sized stories, you have visual representations of things, you have these diverse topics. And because it also is very important in terms of topics like specific learning, like science or history, you're also getting this up-to-date information that is happening in today versus some of the older textbooks. It also exposes children to interesting things, creative things, pictures, photography, and it can inspire their own creativity and helping them think outside the box. It obviously, as we mentioned, complements your curriculum in many ways. It's a supplement, it's informal, it's cross-cultural in curriculum. You can always use it to support learning disabilities, because you're trying to break it into smaller chunks. And also if someone's not a native speaker, and you can also use magazines in different languages. In addition, it helps teachers too, because there's a lot of professional development and items that they can use in their classrooms. But we can never forget reading for pleasure and hobbies, because what is important is that children are reading. They're picking up these things and they're reading. So by having not only academic type magazines, but also interest area magazines, you're able to get children to start exploring areas they may have not known to explore before, which is really the foundation of getting them to read more and more. So why digital magazines? If we have all these wonderful paper magazines, why digital? Well, most importantly, there's unlimited access. By having at your fingertips 24/7 access to magazines allows them to have it in their home, in the classroom, anytime that they need it. It also saves time because they're able to get instant issues. They don't have to go to the library and check out new issues. They're not limited by having to go to the library and wait for an issue. It's automatic. It uploads when the magazine comes out. So in any shape or form, it ends up being a better resource when it's digital versus physical because it's instant. And of course, it can't be lost or stolen, which I think is one of the biggest issues that we have with physical items, that children do lose things. They do get damaged, but in this way, they don't. And I think we all can remember being in the classroom and having lots of different shelves of books and magazines, but putting your magazines into a digital format allows you to have zero storage space. The magazines, dozens, hundreds, are available at your fingertips. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Zoe, to talk a little bit about how we use those magazines in the classroom and for leisure reading.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, I'm going to talk about how we can use them in the classroom and for leisure reading and give you some practical applications. So for some simple ways to start, and I'll cover each one, we're going to be talking about in-class activities, how you can use them with language content for research projects in primary source instruction and leisure reading. All right, so now we're going to be talking about in-class activities first. So as we had discussed, magazines can bring a lot of high quality content into the classroom across disciplines. So depending on what you're teaching, for this slide that I have, we have the example of New Scientist with the article Consciousness Unlocking the Mind. This might be good for a psychology class. But there's also magazines like the Paris Review with poetry and literature, and Amateur Photographer with photography and videography. You can really tailor it to the discipline. You can also tailor it to the lesson. So depending on what you're going over in class, you might be able to find an article that's directly related or adjacent, and you can utilize that, or the publication itself. You can have students look for articles that are related to what you're learning directly in class. Back issue availability can also supplement those topics. So like I had said, there might be an issue this month that has an article about consciousness, but in New Scientist, but previous months they might cover other topics. So you can utilize back issues to supplement other topics that you're going over in class. And then also students can access the magazines from their own device while the content is also displayed in the classroom. So if you have a smartboard or projector, play the magazine at the front of the class, while also students can simultaneously access it from their own device and potentially continue reading it at home or wherever they are outside of the classroom. Okay, so next for language content, magazines can also be used to support your school's language programs. So you have the ability to utilize language magazines, maybe instead or in conjunction with language textbooks, and provide some interesting and relevant reading materials for those languages. You can also support your native language speakers. You have speakers of other languages at your school, whether that be students or teachers, or maybe their parents or family members. Providing language content can also support them as well. And then additionally for ELL students, so if you have students that are learning English, again, that high quality, high interest material can be appealing to them to utilize for their language learning. So you can integrate those in that way as well. All right, so the next one we have is research projects in primary source instruction. So again, magazines are primary source, and whether you're doing primary source instruction for your younger students or potentially older students. You can apply this across the age groups depending on who you're teaching. This is also allowing for student-led discovery and search. So, for example, if you're doing a research project in class and you allow students to search using their digital magazines for articles that support their topics, you can allow them to sort of have agency in that discovery and search process within your research project. The magazines also ensure currency with up-to-date issues. So again, a huge component of research is how current the information is, and with magazines instantly available on their publication date, this is really important for students having access to the up-to-date information. And then finally, they will have access to these quality sources regardless of their geographical location. And just a quick example, with some schools that I've worked with, some of them have some difficulties getting physical materials to their location. So if that applies to you, this is something that's really beneficial about magazines, digital magazines, because you do not need to, worry about shipping and getting them to your school. You can just have them as soon as they are published, and they're automatically downloaded. So finally, leisure reading in the classroom is really important. So this could look anything like dedicated time reading during class, or potentially a break during between activities in class, or even substitute lesson plans. Having dedicated time is really important, and especially with magazines. This reading can be started in class and then continued at home or wherever they are outside of class. They might start reading, let's say they start reading National Geographic in class, and then they get onto a really interesting article and they want to continue it on their journey home or at home or wherever they are during recess, whatnot. Students are able to privately discover and explore these topics on their own, and magazines give access to a large range of topics. And this will foster a culture of reading that is student initiated and sustained. So the goal would be that students will start this process and have it become a habit, a hobby, and a part of their life. All right, so now I'm gonna give you a sneak peek on what digital magazines look like in Sora and talk a little bit about Sora. All right, so specifically from Sora, some of the benefits to our platform and magazines specifically is you are able to share the direct link to individual magazine issues. So for example, if you want to embed a magazine specifically for class purposes into your digital classroom, or you want to email it to your students, you can have the direct link and students can click it and immediately get to that specific issue. They're also able to read at home on any device. So one special thing about Sora is that offline reading can happen. So students have the ability to download the materials at school. So when they have access to Wi-Fi, and then they can read them at home or anywhere, depending on Wi-Fi access is not a component that they need to access the magazine. So they're able to read them offline. And then finally, you can track insights like search and reading time. So magazines really help boost the search and reading time because it's that high interest material that students really want to read. And you can track their reading specifically with magazines and with other materials as well. Another interesting and unique thing about Sora is that we have content access levels, and this also applies to magazines. So you probably noticed during our presentation that you saw different magazines that might appeal to different readers. You saw maybe some juvenile magazines, young adult and adult magazines. So our content access levels allows you to customize which age groups see which magazines across the entire collection. So if you have magazines that are more geared towards older readers, those can be customized so that only those older readers can see them and that the juveniles can't. So that's something that you can utilize as a tool with Sora specifically. then just a little call out on how many titles we have in our package. Our international package has over 650 titles with up to 2 years of back issues for most of those titles. And then just to show a little bit of stats with magazine checkouts. We did have a school in the 2023-2024 school year that their edition of magazines grew their checkouts by 115% in 2 weeks, which is amazing. So that's a huge benefit for them, and it just shows the power of how magazines can really drive up checkouts and interest. Students have borrowed over 2.4 million magazines since 2021, which is a lot of checkouts, a lot of magazines, a lot of reading. And then in one school group, magazines account for more than 8% of all Sora checkouts, which is a lot of checkouts. And it's a huge growth for that particular school group. And then I just wanted to call out some of the top titles for each age range. So for juvenile, you can check out those titles, some of what we have available, and then the young adult titles. And you'll see a mix again, as we discussed, of like interest material and then maybe some more academic or, you know, news related subjects. All right, and then we'll show you a little snippet of how magazines look in Sora and how you can display them. So this is just a screen grab of our Explore tab where we have different curated collections, and this is a magazine collection. You're able to curate them. We also are able to find with filters. So if you have multiple collections on your Explore page, students are able to select the magazine filter, and any magazines that are in each collection will filter through, and they'll be able to see those specifically. You can also borrow magazines with one tap. So you'll see here, there's some magazines displayed, and then in the red box is the word borrow. When a student clicks that, it instantly borrows it and opens it for them. You can also view magazine details. So this is an example of World Soccer. And so a student can also just click on it. They might not necessarily want to borrow it yet. They want to read a little snippet of it or read a little paragraph of what it's about, and they can do that and decide to borrow it from that point. You can also view the back issues here. So that's sort of how you would select one of the previous issues, and they organize them by year, and it shows how many are available for each year. And then this is what it looks like when a student borrows and opens a magazine. This is showing World Soccer, and it shows how you can navigate through the magazine page by page. Here's highlighting some of the table of contents and the timeline. It also shows the positioning of what page you're on, and you could see that wonderful graphic display where students are able to really engage with the graphics of the full page spread, like they would a physical magazine. You can also zoom in and out. So if you would like to adjust how zoomed in and out it is, depending on your reading preferences, you can, or if you want to zoom into a graphic, you can do that. And then in addition to that, you can also change the font size depending on what your reading preferences are, and also the lighting. So you can really customize it to how you enjoy to read.
Okay, thank you so much, though, for the kind of the walkthrough of Sora and Laura for how you can implement it into your classroom and some of the benefits of using not only magazines, but digital magazines within Sora. Here, if you scan this QR code, you can learn more about Sora. It'll take you to our website. I've also included the emails of our speakers today if you want to reach out and learn anything more or have any additional questions. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We really appreciate you tuning in today, and we hope that you've learned a little bit more about how magazines could potentially be a new fun format to incorporate within your classroom or within your school library, however you might see fit. Thank you, everybody.